Welcome back to the shop today. It's morning, we're back on the buggy. Let's go see where we left off from the last video. With the driver floor pans in, I think I'm going to get the brake pedal installed, and also we'll put the harnesses in and get the seat installed. With the seat installed, I can, finish up this, because I know where the seat's gonna go, and I can work on, getting all this squared away and bundled up, cleaned up, and we'll be able to sit in it. That'll be sick. I still have to find a place for this. This is the push to talk for the driver's side radio. I don't know where it's gonna go yet. Some people put it on the steering wheel. I don't really want it on the steering wheel. I was thinking maybe I can put it like right in here, or even like right there. I don't know yet. Or in here somewhere, wrapped around the, it's all right, in here somewhere, wrapped around the tube right there. I'll have to sit in it and see where like a natural position for your hands to go. With the, some of the stuff out of the way, you can see this a little better. You can also see I was talking about this in the previous video, the OBD connector that screws down here. That's the OBD for the computer. What's gonna plug into that is this OBD pass-through, which pulls signal for different things on the dash. Now, the only reason I haven't plugged this in is when I plug HP tuners into it, it doesn't seem to like this pass-through. It doesn't really pick anything up when I pass it through. So for the tuning process, I'll probably leave this off so I can get my HP tuners module plugged in. But that's gonna go in there like that eventually. Sorry, it's gonna go on there like that. All right, so let's see what we can do today. Before I put the seat in, I figure it'll probably be easier to get the harnesses in. These will fit all through the holes in the seats. I don't like that. So the seat comes down pretty far, close to this bracket, the seat bracket, and the wires going over the seat bracket, it's pinching, which I figured there was gonna be enough room between the seat and the top of the bracket, but the edge of the seat gets close enough to push on the wires. So I'm gonna try and move some of these wires to either through these lightning holes or maybe underneath the bracket instead. All right, there we are. That didn't take very long. Love these grip lock ties. Talked about them in the previous video right there. I was able to just take them off instead of cutting them. I did have some old zip ties that I didn't replace with the grip lock ties that I did cut off, but the ones that I had bundled with the grip lock ties, I just put them back on.
You can get yours at griplockties.com or Cletus McFarlane. By the way, I should mention, it should be obvious that I'm not affiliated with these companies. I just think they're cool. The reason why I say it should be obvious is because, there's like 13 people that watch this video. So, watch these videos. So anyway, check that out if you're interested. But anyway, we got the wires running underneath the seat bracket now. Over the top of the seat bracket was just a little too close. The bottom of the seat does pinch, which can't really control that. The seats have their own brackets, and the brackets put the seat, just above the bracket, or just above this plane here. So that's just how they are. It didn't take very long though. I was conveniently able to, all my lights are magnetic, as I talked about in a previous video, but I'm also going to secure them with zip ties, but I hadn't put them on yet, so it was easy enough to just pop this off, take the whole bundle, and just fish it over the top of the bracket and underneath. So, all right, take two on the seat installation. And the microphone is magnetizing to everything. Magnet-backed microphone is good in theory, unless you're working around a skeleton of metal. All right, the bolts are just loose right now. But what I want to do, there's one position, it's basically one notch forward of its furthest back position. I'm pretty tall, so I'm gonna see if I even like this positioning. Or back it up one to be at the furthest back. Yeah. I really would rather have that last slot. Doesn't quite fit in the last slot because it's right up against the tube. There's a support tube down there. I can't really get the camera in there to show you, but on this bracket here, there's a support tube that it's butting up against. So I'm gonna pull the seat out and see if I can trim a little bit on that bracket. It's not gonna take much. So I can get every bit of the back position. All the hoses and everything run good. They don't even touch the seat. All right, false alarm. I don't have to do anything. So I took the seat out and realized that I just had my driver's seat and my passenger seat reversed because I already trimmed, couldn't remember, but I thought I did this already. I already trimmed along this bracket here, right here. Just took a grinder to that, just took a little bit off, just so the thing that this butts up against, it scoots over enough that the bolt will get through the hole. You can see, you can't even tell the amount that came off. I mean, it's a small amount. But I had the wrong one. See, I didn't trim the other side. So this is the passenger seat, because the passenger seat has the same problem on this side. And I was trying to put this one in the driver position. So this bracket would need to be the bracket that is trimmed, which is the case on the other seat. So we'll get the other seat in there and it should fit. Yeah. Have to adjust the gas pedal forward a little. I can adjust the brake back a little bit too. It's a good spot for pushing on, but I don't know. We'll bleed the brakes and then see. I'll adjust it after bleeding the brakes. Just playing around with getting the rear steer control clocked. Yeah, I like that. Okay. Yeah. Getting closer. All right, new day. Yesterday we got the floor pans in. Show you what we're doing today. All right, before I could get the passenger floor pans in, I really need to take care of finishing up the hydraulics. So, specifically for the rear steer. So, what I'm going to work on today is getting measurements for rear hydraulic hoses. Now, if you can see, the two fittings, I'm going to clean up these wires obviously, but the two fittings are right here. That's the left and right output for the steering ram. So I need to figure out some routing and then start measuring. It's kind of tricky, and I might end up taking a couple of measurements. Initially, well, not really initially, but what I'm kind of leaning towards now is maybe coming off of these with 90 fittings and then having the hoses follow this tube over here and then ride right in here between, there'd be body panels here and the seat here, down here all the way to the back, and then follow the top link out to the rear axle. So this is ultimately where I'm shooting for, where I'm shooting to get out. But it's just how to get there in the best way. So, we have the battery right there, and these hoses are, stiff. They're hydraulic hoses. So I can't really go around the battery this way because it gets really close to the drive shaft. Unless maybe could go down, have them go down here and then be below the drive line and then sneak around here, maybe. That's an option. The other option, up through here, but this is problematic because of obviously all the wiring and, the seat harness goes right here. There's a buckle that goes here, so there's a bolt, and, can I sneak in here? Under here, I don't know. The hoses are kind of big. I need to measure the hoses in the front and see if I can even get them to fit in here. And then the only other option, I could go down on the other side of the battery, but the problem there is it's right next to the exhaust. So I don't really want, those hydraulic lines getting close to heat. So that's what I'm trying to figure out. So that's what we'll start with messing with today. All right, we got that measured. I think we've decided on routing from here, and it's gonna sneak up, kind of come up here, up into this area where I can secure it to this bracket, and then obviously figure out how to get through, where the best route is through these wires, and then come through the drive shaft hoop on the underside, on the back side of this tube, come over here, and then pick up the link out. With as stiff as those hydraulic hoses are, and the way the fittings are as far as how long the fitting is before the hose starts, I think that's just going to be the best option. It's not really going to get any closer to the drive shaft than the battery already gets. And the battery does get pretty close to the drive shaft, but the U-joint there is the furthest away that the drive shaft ever comes. And even with the vehicle's flex, the drive shaft really only goes up and down, and it doesn't even go up and down that much. So should be fine, especially with the hoses hugging really close to the choking to the side of the drive shaft hoop. There should be plenty of room in the center of that hoop for the drive shaft. So I think that'll be the best routing. I think if I didn't have the wiring in here, obviously under the seat would be ideal. Over here is going to be problematic because there's a floor pan there, so I'd have to come through the floor pan, and it's kind of like in your leg area, so that's not ideal. And then the other routing on the other side of the battery just gets close to the heat, close to the exhaust, so we'll rather keep that away from the heat. So I think that's what we'll try anyway. I'll get the hydraulic hoses made, and we'll see if that works for routing. The other thing I'm going to mess with today is I'm fighting a little bit of a brake fitting leak on the back side. You can see the T there. I had issues with the front one leaking too. It's a brass fitting, and three of the, it's a brass fitting that is a T, and then the three fittings, that screw into the brass are inverted, brake line, standard brake line inverted flare. I thought with it on the front fitting and no amount of tightening would get it to stop leaking. I take the fitting off and it looks totally fine. The inverted flare looks fine, the inside of the T looks fine. And I just changed it out for one of the other ones and it doesn't leak. So I don't know if there's, like, the flare on those fittings needs to be lapped, which is kind of ridiculous. It's a brand new fitting, but they don't work that well. I'm not really happy with those fittings. And before you say, like, if you saw them and say, oh, you just need, thread tape, you're missing thread tape on there. It's not a tapered thread like an NPT thread is. The seal is not by the threads. The threads are just straight threads. So the seal of those fittings is the flare on the inside. It just compresses. It's just, friction fit. So it relies on those metal surfaces being really smooth. And the fit is the same way that an AN fitting seals. It's just the flare itself that does the sealing. So, I don't know. So I'll see if I can figure out which one on the backside here is the one that's leaking, and then, I don't know, change out the fitting, I guess. I guess it's like a 1 in 3 shot on these things sealing, so we'll see. Yep, brakes are still leaking. You can't tell from here, but... So tightened them all up again and changed one of the fittings to a brand new fitting, yet another brand new fitting, and it's still leaking. And it's leaking from 2 fittings, so these things seem like they're junk. I think I'll ultimately just replace it with, if I can find a T, just a -3T male, like with male -3s on all sides. I think I'll just do that. Just bypass these stupid brake fittings. The other thing I did today, though, is put the transfer case shifter boot on here. And got my little stickers on there, so that's kind of cool. I know I probably could have hid these screws underneath, like inside this, but it's just going to be way too much of a pain to try and screw those down from the underside, or get a screwdriver in here to try and do it from inside to hide the screws. So whatever, it's fine. So I think that'll do it for today. The main thing was taking those measurements for the hydraulic hoses. So next day off I get, I'll head to hydraulics place and get those hoses made. So that'll be cool. Once I get those hoses in there for the rear steer, I'll get going on the passenger side floor pans, get the passenger seat in there. We'll be ready for a test rip. I think I'm going to test drive this without the body panels on it, just so I can see good inside and it's less to take off if I have problems, I have to take things apart, whatnot. So that'll be fun. We're almost getting close to test drive. All right, it's the next week. I was able to go to the hydraulic place, take those measurements to them, and have a couple of hydraulic hoses made. So let's get that installed, and then we'll be able to test the rear steer, as well as start putting the passenger seat and floor panels in.
right, so we got that installed. You can see it's kind of under stuff, but these two hydraulic hoses go into the manifold there. They're pretty stiff, so I ended up having to reconfigure the battery a little bit here. I wasn't really comfortable with getting them to turn tighter than they are right now, right here, because there isn't that much hose before it goes into the fitting. So and with the stiffness of these hoses, if I were to bend this to go where we were originally planning on going with them, kind of like around the battery and up here, it was just going to be really tweaking on that fitting pretty hard, and I didn't really think that was a good idea. So the battery terminals are in the way, or were in the way, but thankfully these Optima batteries are also front post batteries, and I have front posts. So I ended up moving the two battery cables, you can see, to the front posts to make more room for this to kind of scoot right over the battery instead of, you know, it being all rubbing and touching on the battery terminals. I'm gonna find some like insulating caps to put on those just so they're not bare exposed like that. But you can see the hoses go up here, around the backside through the drive shaft hoop there. And you can see the U-joint in there. It gets kind of close to, you know, moving these wires, but you can't really see from this side, but those cables are pretty well out of the way, so I don't think that'll be an issue. And then the hoses go through there. I got them tucked pretty close to the tube here to keep them this way as far as possible, away from the drive shaft. The drive shaft goes through the middle of that big hoop though, so I don't think that'll be a problem. Obviously I'm going to check that when I get the drive shaft in there, but it pretty much stays centered in there. And then comes along here. I have zip ties in various places that I haven't cut the tails off yet, and then down the link, it comes off the link right there. And then under here to right there. So that's the rear steer system basically ready to go. I think the next thing I'll do today is I got better fittings for the brakes. Well, hopefully they're better fittings. Instead of using a T that has 3 fittings in it that converts inverted flare brake line to -3, which essentially leaves 6 places for a leak, the fitting into the T ×3, and then the hose end onto the fitting ×3. I just decided to bypass that and go with just a -3T that looks like that. So that'll replace that brass T, and hopefully, cross your fingers, the brake leaks will be solved, at least there. I have 2 of these, so I may actually replace the front T with this too, although the front T is not leaking at the moment, so we'll see. But I'm gonna get that changed out right now. All right, that'll do it for this one. Got the rear steer hoses installed, and I got that rear brake T replaced, so that will be good. Rear brakes shouldn't be leaking at that T anymore. So next video, we should be testing the rear steer, which is gonna be sick. And check it out, Dad's working on something.
You say that like it's remarkable.
Thanks for watching.